Welcome to Study Studio staring down the economy section for SSC CGL 2026. If topics like GDP, PPP, and the role of the RBI have your head spinning, trust me, you are not alone. Every year, thousands of sharp, hardworking students lose valuable marks because they just can't get a grip on these key economic concepts. They get tangled in confusing jargon and never quite figure out the kinds of questions SSC really asks. But what if you could see the pattern? What if you had a very good idea of the questions that are likely to show up in the exam? What if you could get a leg up on the competition? Starting right now, in this video, we are going to master 10 of the most probable economy MCQs for the SSC CGL 2026 exam. And here's my promise to you, by the end of this, you won't just know the right answers. You'll understand the core concepts behind them so well that you can handle any similar question with total confidence. We'll break down each topic, see why the wrong options are wrong, and build a strong foundation of knowledge. So, grab your notebook, tune out all distractions, and let's get ready to conquer the economy section together. Let's get ahead. Question 1, GDP and its nuances. Alright, let's jump right in with our very first question, a topic that examiners love. Question: an economy's nominal GDP grew by 12% in a fiscal year, while its real GDP grew by 7%. What can be definitively concluded from this data? A. The country's production of goods and services decreased. B. The rate of inflation was approximately 5%. C. The country's exports exceeded its imports. D. The fiscal deficit of the country was 5%. Take a second, read the options carefully. This is a classic conceptual question, made to test if you understand more than just the definitions. Pause the video and drop your answer in the comments. Let's see how many of you nail this. Okay, let's unpack it. The correct answer is B. The rate of inflation was approximately 5%. Today we're breaking down a classic SSC question about GDP, but we're doing it with pizza. If you've ever struggled with nominal versus real GDP, this 2-minute will make it crystal clear. Imagine a small country that makes only one thing, pizza. Last year, they made 100 pizzas, each sold for 100 rupees. So their GDP, the total value of everything produced, was 10,000 rupees. Simple enough, right? Now, here's where it gets interesting. There are two ways to measure GDP growth. First, nominal GDP. This counts pizzas at today's prices. If pizza prices go up, nominal GDP goes up too. Second, real GDP. This counts pizzas at last year's prices. It shows whether we are actually making more pizzas, ignoring price changes. This year, something changed. Our pizza country made 107 pizzas, that's 7% more than last year. Good news. But wait, pizza prices also increased to 105 rupees each. Now let's calculate. Real GDP, 107 pizzas multiply 100 rupees, last year's price, equals 10,700 rupees. That's a 7% increase from 10,000 rupee. Nominal GDP, 107 pizzas multiply 105 rupees, current price, equals 11,235 rupees. That's a 12% increase. See the gap? 12% minus 7% equals 5%. And here's the golden formula examiners love. Nominal growth equals real growth inflation, 12% equals 7% plus 5%. That 5% difference? That's inflation. This is called the GDP Deflator. It measures overall price changes in the economy. Now let's quickly see why the other options are wrong. A. Production decreased. Absolutely not. We made 107 pizzas versus 100 last year. Production clearly increased. C. Exports exceeded imports. Our pizza story says nothing about trading with other countries. Can't conclude this. D. Fiscal deficit was 5%. That's about government borrowing, not pizza production. Wrong category. So back to our original question, nominal GDP grew 12%, real GDP grew 7%. What can we conclude? The correct answer, the rate of inflation was approximately 5%, option B. Here's your exam hack, whenever you see a difference between nominal and real GDP growth rates. Stop. Think inflation. Quick recap. Real GDP equals actual growth in production. Nominal GDP equals real growth plus price increases. The difference equals inflation, GDP deflator. Remember the pizza story. More pizzas? Real growth. Higher prices? Inflation. Both together? Nominal growth. Now for the why. This is where we really build the concept. SSC doesn't just ask for definitions, it tests how you apply what you know. First, what is GDP? Gross domestic product is the total value of all final goods and services produced inside a country's borders over a specific time. But there are two main ways to measure it, nominal and real GDP. Nominal GDP is calculated using current market prices. So, if production increases or prices increase, nominal GDP goes up. It doesn't separate real growth from inflation. Real GDP, on the other hand, is calculated using prices from a fixed base year. This is key. By using constant prices, real GDP filters out the effect of inflation and shows the actual change in the quantity of goods and services produced. This is why real GDP is seen as a much more reliable measure of a country's economic growth. In India, the base year for GDP calculation is currently 2011-12. So, the question says nominal GDP growth is 12% and real GDP growth is 7%. The difference between these two is a rough estimate of the inflation rate. The formula is often approximated as nominal GDP growth equals real GDP growth plus inflation rate. Therefore, 12% equals 7% plus inflation rate. This gives us an approximate inflation rate of 5%. This is measured by something called the GDP Deflator, a price index that tracks price changes of all new, domestically produced goods and services. Now, let's look at why the other answers are wrong. This is a crucial step for clearing up any confusion. The country's production of goods and services decreased. This is flat out wrong. Real GDP, which measures actual production, grew by a solid 7%. That's an increase, not a decrease. C. The country's exports exceeded its imports. This data tells us nothing about the country's trade balance. GDP includes net exports, imports, but you can't figure out the individual values of exports or imports from growth figures alone. D. The fiscal deficit of the country was 5%. GDP growth and fiscal deficit are completely different things. Fiscal deficit is about government borrowing, the gap between its total spending and total income, while GDP is about the country's total production. You can't calculate one from the other with this information. Master the difference between nominal and real GDP. It's a fundamental concept and a guaranteed question area for SSC CGL. Overview. This question matters for UPSC, SSC, and the economy ahead. Subscribe to Study Studio and stay one step ahead every day.